All right, here we are, folks. Welcome into the Auction Brief YouTube channel. I know I don't talk about it a whole lot, but this is the best way to go live and to get some conversation happening on a live auction, baby. Here we are. It is a couple days before the beginning of the biggest draft weekend of the year. So I thought to myself, let's do something that the masses have been clamoring for. All seven of you. We are about to get started here. We are set up over on Sleeper. I'm going to do my best to try to share the screen, although I don't know how well it's going to work because I haven't gone live through here. I've always used StreamYard, which is a little bit easier, but I'm going to keep you updated as we go along, and we're going to get the auction started right now. And we are on a 30-second clock to start. We'll go through a couple rounds like that, and if it's going a little bit too slow, I'll pump it down to 10 seconds to keep it moving. I'm going to try to tell you every pick that happens as we go and try to offer my commentary. But as you know, doing all this at once is not the easiest thing in the world. So I'm going to do my best. Keep me in line here in the chat box. I can read your chat and I am ready to rock. Here we go. The draft is underway. All right. And the first nomination is Priest Holmes. I'll go 20 on Priest Holmes. Make sure we handcuff him with Larry Johnson. Okay. We have Patrick Mahomes as the first nomination, and we're up to $22 for Patrick Mahomes. I like this idea. You know, I'm actually looking at top quarterbacks in a lot of my options this year. It's been happening fairly frequently, so I am looking at Patrick Mahomes as one of the guys that I might look, to be nominating early. I like the early nomination. You find out whether or not you're gonna get a guy like Mahomes. So, looks like things are running out. The price is up to $27 now. That's into the neighborhood where I'm probably going to be out. I'm looking to go in the mid-20s for a quarterback like this. It's not that I don't like Mahomes for $29. It's that I have trouble finding money for the back of my roster when I do that. So I think the price itself is fair. It's just not working into most of my builds. So we're at 29 and excuse me, went for $30 went Patrick Mahomes. You know what? I'm gonna go ahead and see whether or not I'm gonna get one of these quarterbacks here. So I'm gonna go down here to Mr. Josh Allen. A bit of an odd start to an auction to go 2 quarterbacks right out of the gate, but that's what we're doing, folks. We're mixing it up. I wanna know if I'm gonna get one of these guys. If he goes up to 30 again, I can change. I'm not gonna be married to that strategy, but this is, Brian asked in the chat, industry folks are home late. It's a little bit of a mix of both. So it's gonna be an interesting room because there's some people that haven't done a lot of auctions in here. We're at $27 on Josh Allen right now. We're up 28. So I'm gonna try to figure out how to share my screen. All y'all are experts on YouTube sharing my screen. I don't know how to do that because I usually use StreamYard. And, I wish you guys could see, um, how this is going. But, all right, so we just ended up with Josh Allen going for 28. So Mahomes went for 30, Allen for 28. I think in a 4-point passing touchdown league, you'd rather have Josh Allen there, so the $2 discount isn't too bad on Allen. Now we've got Christian McCaffrey. He's the 3rd nomination. He's up at $37. You'd expect McCaffrey to hit $50. If he doesn't, I'm probably gonna be in there. So right now we're in the upper 30s. I wanna get a couple bids in here while I'm trying to do all this at the same time. Boy, oh boy, I really wish that I had done this um, on StreamYard so I could show you my screen, but let's see here. No, that's not what we want. All right, what's happening with Christian McCaffrey? It's at 49 as we expected. It's gonna get over $50. And again, that's probably market value for McCaffrey. And you have to keep in mind that one of the big things that I talk about all the time in auctions is that you're not going to get big deals on the top guys. So don't worry about getting great quote value on the top guys. Of course, you want to try, But a guy like Christian McCaffrey, you're just never going to see a low price on him. He went for $50. That's about right. I see him going for 52-ish, something like that. So maybe that's a couple dollars off. But that's what a deal is at that level. So don't get too hung up on the top guys being values. Look for those values in the mid tiers more than anything. All right, the next nomination is an interesting one. That's Mr. Najee Harris. So I like the nomination. I have a feeling, excuse me, I got a back problem, so I'm going to be moving a lot. I apologize. I have a feeling that this is a nomination from this is Alexander's nomination. So I think this is a calculated move on Alexander's part. He doesn't want any part of Najee Harris. And I'm going to tell Alexander, who's probably listening right now, buddy, just throw a couple bids in there at $5 or $6 so people think you might actually want him. Because he calls him out for $1 and then he just stopped, never registered a bid the rest of the time. That's a pretty big tell that I would pick up on if I'm in the room with you. Najee Harris ends up for $21. That's about what I've been seeing. I don't. Yeah, let me see if I can let you guys in on a link to the draft board. Share the draft board. Link copied. Yes, here we go. Let's see if that's going to work to help everyone out so you can follow along. There it is. The next nomination is Justin Jefferson. All right, we're really getting it rolling now. We're up in the low 50s already. Let me go back to Najee Harris. He went for $21. That's somebody that I want to talk about because I've been saying all summer that he is a guy that's interesting to me as a 300 touch back. I understand the limitations for Najee Harris this year. But when you're in an auction, it's not like you need to spend the draft capital on Najee Harris that you do in a snake. You're boxing yourself out on certain guys in a snake that I don't want to box myself out on, but I don't have to in an auction. And that means that Harris can sometimes, I saw him go for $19 the other day. That's the kind of thing that you want to think about in an auction because that makes a fine RB2. Are you counting on Najee Harris as an RB1? No, I don't really want to do that. But again, if you really want to jam your money at Travis Kelce and a bunch of wide receivers, Najee Harris as your RB1, there's worse things. And $18 to $22, I think that's right where he's supposed to go. But I think that's a decent price for a guy that's going to touch the ball 300 times. So, everyone, if you're following along here, we are doing a 12-team PPR. We're going to draft a kicker and a D. I know I hate kickers and Ds, but we're doing it. That's what most people do still. So that's what we're doing. And we're going to draft 16 players, 10 starters, 6 for the bench. And we're going to move a lot quicker at the end of the auction. So stick around because things are going to appear to be kind of slow at the beginning, but we're going to move quicker and quicker as we go along. So the last two, I'll update you. Justin Jefferson went for $58. That's a touch high, but that's a pretty normal number that I'm seeing. Jamar Chase then comes in $5 cheaper at 53. So that's a fairly decent number for Chase. Although again, to be in on these guys, it's really going to take a price in the upper 40s for me. Not that I don't believe they're worth that number. It's just that I don't like my build when I have to spend that. So that's generally how it's going to go for me. Now we're talking about Travis Kelce on the block. He's already up at $42. Once again, I like the price in the low 40s. Of course, upper 30s would be great. But again, I don't like my build when I do that. So that's just not going to be me. So what are we doing now? We're at 40. 46 he ended up going for 46. So I think that's a touch high. Of course, Kelce is a monster for the differentiation at the position, but I think 46 is a touch high. So what are we doing now? We are doing Bijan Robinson is the next one up. So the top players are flying off the board fast and furious. Other than Mahomes and Josh Allen, which is a little bit of a weird start, we've had McCaffrey. Najee was a little bit odd, but then we had Jefferson, Chase, Kelce, and now we're talking about Bijan. This is one of the things that I constantly preach that I want you all to remember, that this is how it's going to go. That's what people want to do. So be prepared for the top guys to go and be prepared to be a little bit, you can be a little bit cautious. You're going to have to decide whether or not the prices are right or, for your build or whether or not you should be jumping in. And I want you to watch a little bit, but you see how it's developing and that all these top players are going off the board. So you can't watch too long. Now, sometimes you can go 2 or 3 rounds, and some of the top guys are still gonna be on the board, and you're gonna be okay. But that's something you have to assess when it's going, and right now, it's going pretty hot and heavy for the top guys. So, I'm gonna have to be watching instead of running my FWM as much, but hey, that's the point here. I want you guys to learn, and this is just a mock. Now, Bijan ends up going for 46 bucks, so the prices come down a little bit here into the mid 40s. That's what we're looking for. Now, Eckler's on the clock, and again, we're talking about the top guys here. And that's why I always say when it comes to you for your nomination, why nominate the top guys? There's really not a point to that. Is there? I mean, what are you doing that's helping you when you're just nominating the top guys? That doesn't do anything for you. Let other people do it. They're going to do it. You can see it's happening right now. And that's exactly what's going on right now in the room is everyone wants to talk about the top guys. And Eckler's at 45. Thought he might stall out at 44 there, but he's at 45 now. But the market is starting to get set now that the elite players are going over 50 and the next tier is going into the mid 40s. Eckler's at 47 right now. So, we're talking about a market being set already. And this is what we have to pay attention to. When the market gets set, where are the players in the tiers that are left? And do you need to be acting? If you want one of these top running backs, it's getting thin fast. You probably got to get a running back out there now if that's one of the ones, if that's one of your ideas is you want to have a top level RB1. We're already down to Saquon Barkley and Nick Chubb and Derrick Henry as your top guys. So we're already at that spot where you got to be worrying about scarcity and whether or not one of these prices is going to be artificially inflated because of the lack of options available. So if you were planning on an RB1 strategy like an anchor RB, you're quickly running out of options already, and we're only 9 picks into the draft. This is stuff you got to be on top of, and I hope that when you listen to my show, you learn how to be on top of this stuff. But it's also just about being aware. And one of the things that I constantly tell people all the time is just be aware of what's going on. It doesn't require a ton of top like study or next level thought because it's really not about some tough formula. It's really just about being aware and saying to yourself, I'm in the middle of this draft. What's happened here? Oh no, we've got all these guys coming out of the running back tiers already. I need to be doing something. So if you just float through the draft and you're just thinking about, oh, what players do I want and who's going to be nominated next, you're not thinking about the fact that things are getting scarce already at the RB1 spot. So this is what I mean. When you train yourself to think that, your brain, you won't be able to turn it off. When you get in the auction, you will have that going on like, okay, this is happening and I got to be aware. But it sounds harder than it is because once you train your brain to do it, you will do it automatically in the future and you'll say, okay, X, Y, and Z has happened. So just remember that. Just remember that it's hard for a little while, but isn't that every skill? And that's what I tell people. Don't worry about that. Don't worry about the fact that this is, that there's a degree of difficulty here. That's okay. I mean, things that are fun and things that are rewarding have a degree of difficulty. So just relax, take a deep breath, give yourself some grace, give yourself a time to learn all this stuff. And once you do, then it just becomes automatic. I promise you can train your brain to do it. I say this all the time. People that know me know that I used to be an online poker player. So used to grind a lot of hours at the online poker table. And one of the things that I always told myself was real simple, and that was that over the period, who is up? Cooper Cup. Uh-oh. I interrupted my train of thought because my buddy Cooper Cup is on the clock. And anybody who knows me knows I ain't going to let this happen too cheaply. Let me update you on the last couple players. We'll go back to the poker story here. Austin Eckler ended up going for 49. Then Tyreek Hill came up for 49. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown went for 47. A bit of a big number for Amon-Ra St. Brown, but I understand it. The hype is there. It's happening. So you got to be prepared to pay up for him. Cooper Cup's now at 46. That's one of the higher prices I've seen recently. So that's an interesting number. because that tells me people are getting a little bit more confident in Cooper Cup. That maybe this 40 and $41 stuff that I was seeing a couple weeks ago is a product of the hamstring and not necessarily nervousness about the offense or Matthew Stafford. So Nick Chubb is at 2. So what I was going back to about the online poker was I used to, the whole point of online poker is you can get a lot of hands in. And so your edge may only be 4, 5, 6%. But if you can play a lot of poker, then you have that long term edge. So I knew that I couldn't just play one at a time. And most online grinders play a bunch of tables at a time. And so I was playing anywhere from 3 to 5 tournaments at the same time. And it got to the point where I had trained my brain that I could handle it all. And I was kind of bored and I would just turn on a movie. So I was at that point where I had automated all that stuff. It was all automated. That's how an auction draft is. You have to remember that at the beginning, I couldn't play 5 tables and watch a movie. Of course not. But when I went deeper into, um, uh-oh, it's my nomination, and I had a guy that I was going to do. Yeah, we're going to go ahead and close out the top 3 quarterbacks to see if I'm going to have one. And this is what I mean about pushing the draft where I want it to go. I'm interested in the top 3 quarterbacks this year. I don't usually do it, but I'm certainly interested, and I'm gonna push that out there early to find out if that's gonna happen for me. And if it's not, then I'm gonna take that money from my par sheet and I'm gonna slide it down elsewhere. I wanna know that right away. There's no reason to wait. And this is what I was talking about at the beginning. There's no reason to wait and say, "Oh, well, I'm gonna save Jalen Hurts and see if I get a deal." You're gonna save Jalen Hurts for 13 rounds? Like, no, somebody's gonna nominate him. So call out the guy you want, especially if they're elite. Find out if you're gonna get him. And if you're not, you can move on. Okay. So right now we're at $23 for Jalen Hurts. We're up to 24. And because the market's already been set, he's probably going to be too expensive for me, but I'm going to find that out. So he's at 28 right now. And I think I'm good. I think that 28 is where I want to see him. And I want to see it get up there, and then I'm fine with him going. So he goes in between Allen. No, I'm sorry. He went for the same price as Allen. He goes for 28. Mahomes goes for 30. So, hey, none of those are hateful prices. We've been seeing a lot of prices over 30. But I will say in recent mocks and recent weeks, the quarterback prices haven't been as high as they were. So I think it's something to be on the lookout for. If you want to try to grab one of those top 3, you may be able to get them in the mid 20s. So it's something I would absolutely think about. So the whole point of the online poker analogy is that auctions will become an automated skill. So you don't have to um, be upset about not being able to keep track of all this stuff at the same time. That's what practice is for. Shout out to Gina who's in the draft tonight. She said she was a little bit nervous about getting in here and knowing what she was doing. And I said, that's what the value of the exercise is. And you got to give yourself some grace and say, hey, I'm going to learn some lessons here. There's going to be some things I didn't do or some things I did that feel like mistakes. First of all, you have to analyze whether or not they're actually mistakes. When you get done with the draft, was it really a mistake to not bid or bid on that guy? And then on top of that, if it was, it's really easy to say, hey, now I know going forward what I did wrong here and how I can correct the mistake. This is all so super valuable. And I don't want to stress that, I don't want to say that too much, but it is. This is a group of individuals who are taking it serious and who are going to actually give the exercise a good go. Now you can't get on Yahoo and go with a bunch of Yahoos and start doing a mock and think you're going to get much out of it because it's just, it's not going to be what you want. Get in something like this with me or there's other auction guys out there that are constantly running mocks. And so, you can I'm getting some crackling. If you guys hear that, let me know. But, get in one of these. This is incredibly valuable. And just watch it. Try some new things. That's another thing I say. Try things. Just get out of your comfort zone. Like I have a build that I like, and I just like try to go back to that all the time. And I actually switched it up a little bit last year. It was just like I'm going to go for a few more running backs. The value seems to be at running back. It didn't work not because it was a bad strategy, but because I suck at picking players apparently. So, but this is the time to try that. You never go for Kelsey, go get Kelsey. You never go for a top 3 quarterback, go get it. Go do it. And that's why you want to be doing these things in the off season. You get into your draft, you feel so much more comfortable. Hey, I did this. Hey, I saw this. Hey, I know how to handle this. All right. So last couple, let me update. I've been running my FWM. Let me update here. We had Cooper Kupp for 46. The 13th nomination, first one of the second round, was Nick Chubb for 45. And then Jalen Hurts went for 28. Mark Andrews went for 25. Tony Pollard for 45. And Stephon Diggs for 45. All right. I'm going to drop the draft board in here again. I hope everyone can follow along. Next time, I'm going to do this on StreamYard and I'll share my screen, be a little bit more tech savvy here. Old Boomer Davenport didn't get it set up right. But anyway, we have Stephon Diggs at 45. Now we're at Kelvin Ridley. So now the wide receiver tiers are starting to be a little bit depleted, like the running back tiers. So we're getting to that point now. We're at nomination number 18. That means we're halfway through the second round. And this is what I talk about when I talk about not waiting too long. Some of the top talent is starting to get a little bit scarce. And it's not that we need to panic, it's that we need to start looking for an opportunity to land a player. I have nobody. And it looks like maybe I'm the only one who has nobody. That's probably partially because I'm running my mouth. But also, I haven't seen the deals I really love yet. I do like Calvin Ridley here at 27. I'm fine with that. Scott Cove is going with me here. I'll go to 29. Scott, if you're listening, yeah, go ahead and hit that 30 button. And he did. So I think I'm out on Ridley at 30. That's okay. There will be some deals. Something's going to happen here. Something's going to break. People are going to start to realize that the money's thinning out. But, we're still only on pick number 19. So we're only partway through the second round. We don't need to panic. We just need to pay attention because the top nominations are coming fast and furious. Now we've got Devontae Adams on board. So Ridley goes for 30. I think that price for Ridley is pretty consistent recently. I don't think that I'm seeing him go in the 20s too often anymore. That's unfortunate because I'm not sure that I love Calvin Ridley for 30 to 35 bucks. There is some risk there that other top guys don't have. Having said that, I think 30 to 32 is okay. I'm fine with that. And I really think that that's the kind of pick that can return some smash value. So if you get him for 30 to 32, that's okay because he can easily perform like a wide receiver one. And we know that they have an ascending offense with Trevor Lawrence. So I'm okay with it. That's not where I want to be on Ridley, but I understand it and I certainly am okay with it. And that's one of the things that you're going to hear me say throughout this entire stream. And I really believe, that 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 auction drafts are an odd thing in that respect, in that everybody looks at values of players and says, "Hey, that's good value" or "That's bad value," and it really comes down to your personal preferences in some of these players. Because Najee Harris went for $21. There could be somebody sitting out there who has a $28 valuation on him or a $31 valuation because it's about our individual preferences here. So you don't really know whether or not that person considers it a good value. We can objectively say, as it is measured against AAV, whether or not it's good value. There can be an objective standard there. I'm not, saying there can't, but I am saying that you just have to be careful because the valuations aren't necessarily all about just what I think. I'm okay with certain prices. Like I wasn't going to let Barkley go for 43. I had to throw in a bid there for 44 just to get it up there a little bit more. I like Saquon Barkley, but I just didn't want it to go that cheap. Probably should have bid 46 if I wasn't saying stuff. But what it comes down to is somebody pays a certain value. Like let's pick out a player here. Okay, Devontae Adams went for 44. Now I see Devontae Adams sometimes going for 38 bucks. Now, you could see 38 and say, that's terrible because Devontae Adams is going to suck this year. Or you can see 44 and say, what are people doing? That's a $55 player. So, I'm not going to make I'm not going to make value judgments necessarily on whether or not that deal is independently good or not. We all know that. We have AAV charts. I think what it comes down to is build and opinion of the player individually. So it's hard to really be too critical of anybody, although I'm going to try to do that here. So we're on Derrick Henry. He's up at $35. That's a little bit higher than I've seen Henry go for recently. 37 is the bid now. I don't think, for a guy like Derrick Henry, if he stays healthy and does what he's supposed to do, he certainly caught more passes last year than he ever had, and maybe that's going to continue. So if you end up with Derrick Henry in the 30s, it could end up being one of those monster picks. The reason I'm staying away is because I am concerned about the age cliff and the touch cliff for Henry. And I think others are as well, or else he wouldn't go for $37. So if you want to make that bet, Derrick Henry is a guy to bet with because sometimes you can get him in the mid 30s. It's just one of those things that you just, if that's you, if that's your risk tolerance there, then giddy up because Derrick Henry is a guy that you should be looking at. All right, now we're on CD Lamb. And the thing that we got to be careful of on the receiver stuff is things are getting thin. After Lamb, it's A.J. Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle, Chris Olave, T. Higgins. Those are fine players, but they're not top level players, are they? I shouldn't say they're not top level players. That's a poor way of saying it. They're not elite tier players. We're not talking about Jefferson, Chase, Hill, those kind of guys. So we're in that spot where we need to be bidding a little bit to get in the game before things get out of control. And I just bid 47 on Lamb because I see the writing on the wall at receiver here. And I landed Lamb for 47. I'm fine with that because the writing's on the wall here. And AJ Brown, Garrett Wilson, Jalen Waddle are the next guys up. I wanted to get one guy before it got away from me. I don't want to pay 47 for Lamb. That's not ideal. I'm hoping to pay 42 to 44 for my wide receiver one. But this is one of those spots where it's I gotta pay. Okay. I have to get in there. And that's what I always talk about is if you feel like you're overpaying, oh well, you got to get in there. What are you going to do? Just say no, that's too much until you get down to Nico Collins and he's a good deal. At some point, you just got to bite the bullet and overpay a little bit. So I'm okay with Lamb at 47. Don't like the price in a vacuum. I like the price in this room and for this situation, if that makes any sense. All right, Rashad White is on the block now. So with nomination number 22, which puts us near the end of the second round, we finally get the nomination for a player that isn't an elite guy other than Najee Harris. So we've had all elite players to this point. Rashad White comes up and he goes for 18 bucks. That's a decent price for Rashad White. And that's one of those things where that's a pretty well-timed nomination. If you feel like Rashad White is a player that you want to be targeting, when all these elite players are coming off the board, then that's a great time to get in there and say, all right, I'm going to nominate a mid-tier guy and see if people are just waiting around on the last few elite guys. So I think that's what I'm going to be doing here in the second round is my nomination is going to go towards somebody that I feel like won't command a massive price that I think will let me into the running back market. So we're at Jonathan Taylor. Interesting nomination. It started at $15, $14 and ends at 17. So that's an aggressive $14 nomination. And it's one of those things that, I want to caution everyone about because sorry about that. My back is acting up. I like the idea of nominating a player for a few more dollars, but I saw this happen the other night in one of my home auctions. Somebody nominated a player and their opening bid got him. And I think he nominated somebody for like 14 bucks. And, that's the rub. If you guess on a player for a price or a valuation that you think they're definitely going to go above and you're wrong, you probably left money on the table. I don't think that's a good strategy for borderline players. So I'm not here to kill the person for nominating Taylor for 14. But what I will say is it's a dangerous game. It's a risky game. So I want you to consider that idea when you think about pulling that move. Is that maybe you should think, okay, well, he'll go for more than this. And then you should pull back a little bit and say, okay, I'm going to nominate maybe $5 less or a couple bucks less than that because you could be reading the room wrong and you could be leaving money on the table. All right. So just think about that part. Now, I just had to nominate. My nomination was for Brees Hall. I'm seeing Brees Hall go far too cheaply in some of my recent auctions. So I'm going to see whether or not I can get into the back market here with Brees. I don't want to pay too much. So this room, it seems a little aggressive still. And if he goes too high, that's totally cool. But I'm going to try to get in there and get him in the low 20s. If he's going to sneak up into the upper 20s or low 30s, then I'm just not interested. There's going to be a timeshare there, regardless of when he gets healthy. Dalvin Cook's going to take a healthy amount of the work. 25. Oh, right in the mid 20s. That's just not where I should have bid 26. See, hey, folks, you witnessed the agony of auction drafting live right here. I really wanted to bid 26, but Brees Hall's a guy I want at 22 or 23. So I'm just gonna back off there. I'm not as interested as I need to be for it to go up into the upper 20s. That's a good number. 25 is a good number. I should have said 26. I have some remorse already. Pick number 26 out of the gate. I have remorse for not bidding on Brees Hall, but I think there's going to be some value. So I'm okay because the pricing has been a little bit high. It's not been egregious, but it's been high enough that I think there's just going to be these little sneaky $3 to $5 values here in a little while. We need to start paying attention to when that's going to happen. I think that we're going to see a shift here in a minute, and maybe it's already started to happen with Hall at 25. Am I going to get Metcalf at 25? Okay, maybe it's already happened. That could be it right there, because I'm not in love with DK Metcalf, but I haven't seen a price that low on Metcalf in quite a few drafts. So I like that number. I could be wrong. I could be recalling incorrectly seeing him at 23 or $24, but I don't recall seeing him that cheap in a long time. So I think probably two things are at work. Number one, there's a little bit of money out of the room, but also there's still some guys ahead of Metcalf. And this is a good lesson for you. Pick a guy 6 or 7 down the sheet. Look at your sheet and say, okay, there's these 4 guys that are still pretty, popular. I'm going to pick the 5th guy. And sometimes you're going to get a deal there. Look, Garrett Wilson's already up at 36, 37. He's going to go well over 40. And I don't think the spread between DK Metcalf and Garrett Wilson is going to be as wild as everyone thinks. Now, I'm not a huge Metcalf guy. He averaged 14 points a game last year. That's not anything that's winning your league. But for $25, he's a perfect wide receiver 2, or if I can stretch it, maybe a wide receiver 3. I think there'll be a little TD regression there. So I think I like the price. Having said that, of course, I'd rather have Garrett Wilson. He's up at 42, and now he's at 43. So that's a little, that's a perfect lesson right here. The Metcalf thing, you know, pick a guy that's 5 or 6 down on your sheet. See if you can get that little bargain. Pick a T Higgins when the 6 guys ahead of him are still there. See if you get him for $27. Okay. So, all right. Wilson went for 44. Gina, where'd all your money go? Oh, she's in the chat saying, Lord, I'm already out of money. Okay, $44 for Wilson. Now we got Josh Jacobs on the clock. He's a really interesting study this year. He's just cheap. And he's cheap because I think people are worried about the amount of touches he had last year. I mean, there are some barriers here. He didn't go through camp at all. He's not in football shape. What if he gets a reconditioning injury here right before week 1? I think the other side of the coin, though, is something about Josh Jacobs that I want everyone to remember is that he's motivated, man. And that's one of the things I talk about with Saquon Barkley. Boy, is he motivated. He signed a 1-year deal. He wants to go out and break the bank in his next contract. He's going to do everything he can to stay on the field and be a big producer. So this is one of the bigger numbers I've seen for Josh Jacobs in a while. But I think it's reflecting the fact that everyone is back in on the, there was uncertainty with the holdout, and there was uncertainty about what was going to happen as little as 4 days, 5 days ago. And we're seeing the bounce here. And that was $39 for Josh Jacobs. Again, a bigger number than I've seen for him in a while. So I think that it's okay to pay 39 for Josh Jacobs if he's going to come in and be a 370 touch guy again. But that price is sneaking up into that zone where I'm not sure that the risk is going to be worth it if he has some problems getting up to speed. But if he steps in as the guy he was, oh, baby, 39 is a monster number. That's a great number. So the risk is baked in there, though. I mean, I think that's what we're talking about. So Brandon Ayuk is on the clock now. He's at 19 bucks. And boy, 20. I want it to go over. There we go. Somebody's over 20. Yeah, I'm good on that now. With Metcalf, this is one of the things I talk about all the time. I have Metcalf for 25. I like Brandon Ayuk for 20. I'd bid 21 if I could. But I already have my guy right in that zone. And one of the things I tell people always when I'm talking about passing up deals, this is a perfect example. And I like to see these things play out real time. So, uh, so I'm looking at the chat here, but this is what I say about all the time about passing up deals. And I love that you all can see this. You sometimes just you already have your guy for that slot on your team, or you've already spent like money for your mid-tier guy. And that's what happened here. I got Metcalf for 25. I'm totally happy with that. And if things were equal, I'd say I'd rather have Metcalf for 25 than Ayuk for 21, assuming I even get him for 21. I might not have. That's another thing we can talk about. But do I want Metcalf for 25 or Ayuk for 21? Probably Metcalf. However, it's pretty close. That's not the decision you have to make. The decision you have to make is, do I bid on Ayuk because I already landed my Metcalf type player, and they're kind of the same guy for me when I'm thinking about my squad. So I can't do it. I just can't bid the 21. And that's what it means when it comes down to, like, when I say all the time, you're passing on deals sometimes. And I think Ayak for $20 is a nice price. So you have to sometimes pass. That's the nature of the beast. You can't buy everybody that you want all the time. And you're going to like a lot of players, and you're going to see deals go by. Just don't, you can't do anything about it. That's not, oh well, that's that's how it goes. Just, oh well, you just shrug your shoulders and move on, because that's how auction drafting is. You make your choices, and I made my choice with Metcalf. I can't bid on Ayak. I love that little lesson there, though. That's perfect. Don't go bid just because it's a nice deal. All right. So we got a nice little audience here rolling. Is anybody have any questions as we're going through this thing? Jalen Waddle just went for $37. Ramondre Stevenson for 30. The Stevenson price dipped quite a bit into the mid 20s right after the Zeke news, but it's crept back up there. And in my recent drafts, it's crept up in there into the low 30s, where again, I'm not sure that I love the value. I like it around 30. Oh, my buddy Keenan Allen's up. I got a bid. He's 24 bucks. Now he's 25. Give me him. Give me him. Who's listening out there? Give me him. No. 27. I'll go 28. I'm down with that. He's going to be my wide receiver too if I get him. Um, man, I don't know. I don't think I need to go anymore. He's at 29 now. I think I'm out at 30. He is going to be my wide receiver too if I were to take him, but I'm out on that for right now. There's plenty of guys left that I can get as a wide receiver 2 or 3 type. I still need a running back. I don't have a lot on my roster. I got Lamb and Metcalf. Lamb for 47, Metcalf for 25. So let me tell you now what's going on with the caps in the room. I think that's an important thing to talk about as well. Aaron Jones comes up for bid. And somebody jumped the price immediately to 18 bucks. Again, a risky strategy. That's okay if that's what you want to do, but it's a risky strategy. He's bid 18 and he's got no bids after that right now. And maybe he's fine with them for 18, but it's risky. What if you could have got him for 16? All right. So it's maybe not going to happen with Aaron Jones, but sometimes that's going to happen and you don't want to waste money. So somebody bid 19. The guy who jumped it to 18 came back in for 20 and he ends up landing him for 20. So again, that's a bidding strategy, a bidding a discussion we can have at a different time. But all right. Scott wants to know, what do I have on my par sheet for my RB1? Well, that's a great question. It's a little bit fluid because I'm okay paying into the low 40s for my RB1, but it's really going to kind of depend on what I want to do at wide receiver still. So I'm going to tell you everyone that I don't have a par sheet specifically for this draft. Gasp. Drew, what are you doing? But I have numbers in mind. So don't worry about that part of it. I really want to spend right around 28 to 30 for my wide receiver 2. And I really wanna spend low 40s for my RB1, but I'm beginning to think that I'm not going to get one of those low-end RB1s. Um, or sorry, I saw that I was not going to get one, so I was okay with that. I think it's just gonna end up coming down to a couple of 20-some dollar backs and pouring some more money into wide receiver. So that's where it's looking like it's developing right now. And as we come up to the screen, we are looking at J.K. Dobbins. We just had Lamar Jackson go for 23. J.K. Dobbins is currently at 17. Now he's at 18. So this is a little more aggressive on J.K. Dobbins than I've seen recently. He's at 19 bucks. I think that price is fine, but that's a little bit more aggressive than some of the rooms I've been in previously. Um, Will wants to know where my par sheet is. I'm sorry, Will, I let you down. But no, I have numbers in mind. I got my standard build in mind. I was looking at quarterback first to see whether or not I was going to try to get one of those top three. When I didn't do that, I knew the money would be going into my wide receivers, which is what's going to happen. There's still a lot of top talent out there. So I believe at this point that I'm going to be going at a couple of mid-tier running backs, and then I'm going to be slamming money at two more wide receivers. I want four of them because I want to start three wide receivers and one of my flex if possible. So TJ Hawkinson is now on the clock. J.K. Dobbins ended up going for 20. So I thought the bidding was pretty aggressive for Dobbins, but then it ends up staying right there at 20. And that's about right where he is. He's just a $20 guy right now. That's what he is. Hawkinson stalls out at 8. I'm going to put in a bid at 9. I don't really want to spend a lot of money on my tight end, but this is pretty cheap for Hawkinson, 11 bucks. I'm going to go 12. That's my limit on Hawkinson. I don't really want to go any higher. That's fine. Alex goes up to 13 on him. He can have him, but I got to get him up there in the low, the low double digits before I'm going to feel comfortable letting him go. So I got him at 12. I'm happy at 12, but then I'm out because I'm probably going to spend too much at wide receiver here in a few minutes. And I still think there's a couple running backs that I want to try to chase. So for those of you listening, I'm not going to give you those names, Scott. Scott, I'm not going to give you that. Sorry, buddy. Oh, I'm kidding, buddy. What player is your cutoff for RB1? Well, you know what? That's a great question, Scott. Scott wants to know what's my cutoff for my RB1. And I got to be honest, I'm going to call out this guy here. And I got to be honest that I don't have one, and here's why. Because I end up in a lot of drafts like the one I'm doing right now, where the running backs at the top are too expensive. And so I'm okay just going anywhere for my RB1. Travis Etienne, Gibbs, Mixon, Walker, Pierce. Like I'm okay with any of those guys. And so I don't have a cutoff. I just say I really want to get a guy like Chubb or Barkley as my number one. But if I don't, I'm totally fine running with one of these other guys. Jahmyr Gibbs is the guy I went with for the nomination to see if I could get him in the low 20s. But again, the room's a little bit aggressive, and it's at 26 now. I don't think I love the $26 price on Gibbs. Now he's up at 27. That's okay. Again, I'm not anti 27 for Gibbs. It's just not a price I've been seeing very often with him. I'm seeing him in the mid to low 20s. I was really hoping to get him for 22, 23 bucks. Doesn't happen. That's okay. The deals are coming. As I've said, the prices are just a touch high, not crazy, just a touch. There's been some deals here and there. And one of the things that you want to pay attention to is where are we at the inflection point issue? What is happening right now? Have we undergone a shift? Well, yes. First of all, we have. We underwent that shift in three-quarters of the way through the first round. And then we underwent like a little tiny one where we're talking about a territory where when players aren't very exciting, people now suddenly don't have a lot of money and they're not very interested in going in on a guy like Brandon Ayuk or a guy like Aaron Jones. Even Keenan Allen only for 29 bucks is pretty cheap. J.K. Dobbins fizzled out at 20 after being early, bid up quickly. So we're getting to that territory now where I think the shift has happened again. I think a second little mini shift has happened where we're going to start seeing some deals. That's going to start coming in here. And I think that, Hawkinson for 15, that's totally fine. Like none of these prices are blowing me out of the water, but we're still just a touch high. I think we're right there on the cusp of a shift. I'm going to continue to wait. I know that I don't have many players yet. I have 2, but I still have 128 bucks left. Let's do a money check here across the board. Here's what we've got left. We've got a team. Just gonna call out their caps right now. Kyle Pitts went for 13, and Jahmyr Gibbs went for 27. We're now on nomination number 40. All right. So here's the numbers left: 51, 128. That's me. 94, 140. That's Alexander sitting over there with 140 bucks. Now, Alexander, do you like T. Higgins? Because you nominated him. And I don't know if you're listening. Alex, are you still listening, bud? Drop into the chat. Okay, so he's bidding on Higgins. He's at 20. And this is a guy that's continues to end up on my auction squads. I don't love it. I don't love it. He's got the weird injury stuff where he says he's going to play, then he doesn't play. And, obviously he's playing against an all-timer with Jamar Chase or opposite. But I mean, this just continues to happen on this price, and I continue to end up with Higgins in the mid-20s. And I don't want, that's not what I want. That's not what I'm after. But I continue to believe that price is too low. And look, I had Rich Rebar on for the Patreon. If you're not a Patreon member, you want to think about getting over there. It's only $3 a month. But I had Rich Rebar on, and he was talking about wide receiver contingencies. And this is something that I love because I talk about all the time with a guy like Tyler Boyd. If you have Higgins or Chase and it's $1 to put Tyler Boyd at the back of your roster, why not do it? Because wide receiver contingencies are just as good as running back ones. I mean, wide receivers are going to miss time just like running backs do. Maybe not at the same level, but they're going to miss time. So having a guy like Boyd isn't a bad idea on a squad with a Higgins or a Chase. Okay. So I like Higgins in the mid-20s, and he's been ending up on a lot of my teams. So that's a guy that you might consider calling out. And maybe you sneak him in there for 23, 24, 25 bucks even, and he makes a dynamite wide receiver 2. And then you could spend a little bit more on your wide receiver 3, and that's really where I'm at. I'm at trying to snag a guy like Metcalf for the 25 and then paying the low to mid 30s for my wide receiver 2. And I'm trying to make a run at Chris Olave right now. Alexander's got a ton of money, and he doesn't want to let me do it. So I'm going to let you have him, buddy. 35 bucks it is for Chris Olave. I'm going to let him go. Once again, there's plenty of receivers left. I'm going to roll in and scoop up 2 of them, and I'm going to get 1 running back, and then I'm going to let things fall where they may. The nomination is Mike Williams. Mike Williams is an interesting study. There's just nobody likes him. Nobody's interested in Mike Williams. And I'm going to sit here and say, why? I understand Quentin Johnston is a good prospect, but he's not the next Randy Moss. And Mike Williams knows how to play football. They're going to work on pushing the ball down the field. This is a guy that we know has 30-point upside when he's in the lineup. Yeah, he's got a little bit of injury history, but I just don't understand the hate for Mike Williams at this point. I'm definitely not letting him go for 14 bucks. Somebody else bid. That's good. 16. Yeah, I'm going to go 16 on him. I don't think 16 is amazing, but it's a nice deal. And he's going to be my wide receiver 4 if I can nail him for 16. I don't really want to go to 18. So perfect. Love it. I ended up getting him for 16. Love it. So that's what I want to do. When I'm talking about roster building, it wasn't really about the player right there. It was about I want an explosive guy in my flex. And so I knew that if I don't really want him at 18, I haven't budgeted that much money. I want him around 14 or 15. But it's one of those spots where it's things are going to get a little bit weird with some of these receivers that are left. We've got guys now, we're getting into the territory. We're talking Debo, Amari Cooper, Hopkins, DJ Moore, McLaurin. Those guys are fine, but we're getting into a little bit more uncertain territory. I know what Mike Williams is, and I know he's got an elite quarterback and an elite offensive mind calling the shots, and they've got a high pass rate over expectation. Really what it comes down to is it wasn't about Mike Williams at all. It was about, I want to spend 14 or 15 on my flex. He was only 16. I spent up a little bit. I don't love the price on Mike Williams, but it's working for my build because I want an explosive wide receiver 4 in my flex, and he's perfect. I'm still going to blow another 30 or 35 bucks on a wide receiver. And Gina, no, I will not tell you who that's going to be, but I don't even know that there's a guy worthy on the board of spending that much money. So that's going to make it a little bit easier for me to be deeper at running back, or I might pay a few bucks extra for a quarterback or a tight end, depending on how it develops. So I generally want to spend 30 or 35 on a wide receiver too, but if that doesn't happen because there's not enough players on the board, that's okay. Your team's going to improve somewhere else, and that's the whole point of the par sheet. I know exactly in that range that's what I want to spend. Now, of course, I'd have an exact number on a par sheet if I had done one before tonight, but you know how things go. I'm too busy for it, but I know those numbers in my head. So we just had Justin Tucker go for $2 and the Eagles go for one. That's why I was not talking about a player up. Um, let's see what else we got going on here. Anybody in the chat? Anybody any questions in the chat? We've got DJ Moore up. He's at $18. And so this is a value judgment here. Do you want DJ Moore at 21 or do you want Mike Williams at 16? Well, I love DJ Moore. He's one of my favorite players. But what is the situation with DJ Moore versus what is the situation with Mike Williams? What are the passing attempts going to be? What is the track record of the passer throwing him the football? Now, I understand we've got cases like A.J. Brown and Stephon Diggs in recent years where we know that the ceiling for a guy who finally gets a quarterback is huge. So I don't mind betting on that idea. DJ Moore ends up going for $24. I don't mind betting on that. But if you had to ask me right now, I believe the situation for Mike Williams is better. Having said all that, that doesn't mean anything because that's my valuation. So 24 for DJ Moore versus 16 for Mike Williams, that's a personal decision on your build and how it works for you. So who are we talking about now? We're talking about George Kittle. Talk about a guy who's fallen off the map. Nobody wants to bid on George Kittle. We're seeing that right now because he's at $3. Oh my goodness. Nobody's going to let that happen, are they? Okay, now he's up to 5. But folks, we're seeing this. If you're a George Kittle believer, um, you know, get him out there early. Get him out there quick. Nobody wants to spend on George Kittle these days. Nobody wants to spend. All right. I'm going to try to grab this YouTube link here and get it back out there to let people know we're still on. Thank you so much for joining me. I'm Drew Davenport with the Auction Brief. This is my being streamed through my Patreon channel as well. That's patreon.com/fantasyfootballlawyer. Just $3 a month. We're ramping up the in-season content starting next Tuesday. And we're still pushing out par sheets tonight and tomorrow. Okay. Yes, Scott, I would agree. He says we're about to hit an inflection point in 5 to 7 picks. I agree with Scott there. We're about to see a shift. All right. I'm going to stay on till 10 o'clock on the live stream. We're going to talk as much as we possibly can about all these things that are happening in this draft here. If you have any questions, drop them into the chat. And DJ Moore, 24. Kittle went for 10. We're on Darren Waller now. He's at $18. That's about right. That's what I'm seeing. Seeing around $18, sometimes over 20, sometimes 16. But yeah, we're seeing right around 18. That's a rock solid price right there. So prices are coming down. Have you noticed? Prices are coming down. We're starting to get into the range where the prices are going for exactly what they should go for. That means that we've probably hit or are about to hit that inflection point. And that means that prices may start slipping below, but there's still a lot of money out there. There's still a lot of money out there. So I don't know. We still got, I never read the prices, the caps off like I was supposed to before I got interrupted. And we're now bidding on my favorite player on the planet, Christian Kirk. So I got to go at him. Can't let him go too cheap. I'm not going to go crazy on him. I'm going to bid 13. Somebody wants to keep going, have at it. But $13 is gonna be a steal if you're gonna give them to me for $13. I love it. Christian Kirk is on 1,047% of my teams. That's okay, I love it. Alright, here's the caps right now. Dallas Goedert's up for bid. 23, 99, that's me, 94, 105, 128, 55, 18, 34, 51, 78, 152.56. All right, so Emerson's got the most money at 152. All he got right now is a kicker, Rashad White and Josh Allen. He's going to start mixing it up here soon. Um, so yeah, I'm in a good spot. I like my spot as far as money goes. There's one, two, three, four, five, six, seven, eight of the 12 teams, or excuse me, eight of the 11 possible teams have less money than me. Two have more. That's okay. That's right where I want to be. I've got my players now, and I'm feeling really good about my four wide receivers. I didn't expect to get Kirk for only 13. I think if he got up to about 16 or so, I'd let him go. But now I've got four wide receivers that I really like, and it's my turn for a nomination. So now what I need to do is I need to start figuring out what I'm doing at running back. Okay. So that doesn't mean that I love every running back left, but I've got to get somebody on the board and I got to know what it's going to cost me. And this is that point in the draft where you just got to start thinking about, well, where am I going with the rest of my roster? You can have a plan coming in, but if you don't revise that plan as you're going along, then you're really doing yourself a disservice because at this point, I've got four wide receivers. I didn't spend what I thought I was going to spend on those four. So I have money to spend on a fifth, but also I need to figure out what I'm doing at running back. And I got to know, is it going to be expensive or am I going to get a deal on a guy that I think's a reasonable price? And so I threw out Joe Mixon to see whether or not I'm going to end up with Joe Mixon. Doesn't look like it. He's going to go up at 26. I'm out. I'm out at that price. It's okay. That's a good price, especially for a guy that's going to get a lot of touches in a high value offense. But that doesn't work for me right now. I've only got $99 left. I'm trying to spend probably $50 on two running backs. That's going to leave me with about 50. And that's totally fine because I'm going to spend some on a receiver. But I got to keep in mind that I don't want to take myself out of the draft either. So we've got Terry McLaurin now. That's an interesting nomination. He's at 13. So what I'm saying is I don't want to take myself out of the draft by going, 30 or $32 for Mixon. That's taking a third of my money. And I'd rather have the flexibility at this point. So all right, I'm looking here at the chat. The chat's exploding a little bit. Um, Thoughts on price for Kyler Murray nomination strategy if you have an IR spot. Danny's asking about whether or not I would nominate Kyler Murray. Um, I'm just going to be real honest, Danny. I don't want any part of Kyler Murray. I think it's very possible he doesn't play this season, and that's far from a sure thing, but it's possible. So I don't really think that Kyler Murray is somebody that I'm interested in at all. If you can stash him on IR, that's fine. Just wait till the end of the draft and get him for $1 and no more than $1. But I think it's possible that this team completely bombs, and then partway through the year, they're like, "Why are we bringing Kyler Murray back?" So I think that we just need to be prepared that Kyler Murray might not play at all, and even if he does, it may not be until week 6 or 7. This is not Cliff Kingsbury's air raid offense, So, um, the bottom line is, I'm not interested in Kyler Murray at all. So Joe says, doesn't seem like much interest in tier 2 to 3 tight ends. Have folks seen deals in this range in other auctions? Joe, absolutely. The tier 2, 3 tight ends, nobody cares. Nobody cares. And I think it's okay to spend a little bit of money there. Devontae Smith now goes for 36. Now that's the last of what we might consider that, the top tier, the top couple of tiers. I think we're getting into wide receiver 3 territory now. Not quite. We're still in wide receiver 2 territory with Debo, Amari Cooper, DeAndre Hopkins, a couple of those guys. There's still some nice wide receivers out there. But I'd say Devontae Smith marks a teardrop at this point. So he went for 36, and I think everybody's going to go below 30 now at this point, and some are even going to be sneaking into, below 20 territory. So now we've got Travis Etienne. Again, I'm one of only 2 guys that doesn't have a running back yet. So I got to get in there. But again, I'm not going to overpay. There's just too many running backs. I've essentially shifted my strategy to a 0 running back strategy because I just don't care enough about the rest of these guys. And the prices on the top guys were too high. I told myself I'm going to be much deeper elsewhere. So, yeah, anyway, Joe, back to your point about the tight ends. Yeah, absolutely. Nobody cares. And I'm trying to spend that money. The thing I always say is everybody's, idea in these snake drafts is don't go for mid-tier tight ends. They're disappointing. But that's because you waste draft capital. And that's something that I want to point out. You're wasting draft capital. I'm bidding on ETN here. You're wasting draft capital in a snake draft on those guys. And there's a lot of other good players that you want. All right, so I landed ETM for 27. That's great. I want to spend 50 on 2 running backs. So I'm going to try to spend less than 23 on my second. In fact, I'm going to try to spend far less than 23 because I'm still planning on buying another receiver. And then at that point, it's off to the races because we have the core of our team. So anyway, yeah, like you don't have to make that choice in an auction. Whereas in a snake, you're saying, "Oh, I'm going to take Dallas Goedert in the 8th round or whatever the case may be, ninth. I don't know what he is off the top of my head. Don't do enough of them." But when you make that decision, you're shutting out other players that you really need. You don't have to make that choice in an auction. So I'm fine going for the mid-tier tight ends at 10 or $12. If you want to put that on your sheet, I think that's okay. And I'm totally down with that. So we are talking about Deontay Johnson now. He's at $16. Boy, that's too cheap. All right, 17, 18. Okay, now I'm feeling a little bit better. 19. All right, good. How do you feel about leaving a draft with AJ Brown, Waddle, Mike Williams, Kirk, Judy, Ike? Well, Daniel, that's a heck of a crew. He's saying I left the draft with AJ Brown, Jalen Waddle, Mike Williams, Christian Kirk, Jerry Judy, Brandon Ike. That's a monster group of wide receivers. That's what I like to do. You know, I I really like going 5 or 6 deep at wide receiver because there's bust potential, there's injury potential, there's bye weeks. I just think I love going deep at wide receiver, and that's what I'm doing in this one as well. I've got 4 wide receivers I like. I'm planning on adding a 5th, and then everyone else is going to be a value. Um, so Deontay Johnson just went for $24. That's a little bit higher than I've seen recently, but he is steaming up draft boards a little bit. I'm actually surprised he's not steamed a little bit higher. I think people are a little bit subconsciously feeling the 0 TDs last year, and that's not a conscious thought process. But all right, Tyler Lockett's up for bid, so you know I'm going to be bidding. All right, I bid 18, and now it's up to 20, and I am out because I like Tyler Lockett, but not for that price. Usually I can get him $12 to $16. I don't like him at 20. And there's still plenty of receivers left that I'm going to spend for. So I got $72 left. I've got 5 players. Now, what I love about this is that I've got 5 of my impact core players. I only need one more running back for a starting lineup, outside of my quarterback. And I actually want to spend that on another nice receiver. Now, that means I'm going to be going cheap at quarterback and tight end. That's okay. That's my thing. That's what I do. But I believe that at this point, $72 left. I want to spend another 20 to 25 on a receiver. That's going to take me down to around 50 or high 40s. I'm going to get another running back for 20 something or 18 maybe. And then that's going to leave me really only about $20 for the rest of my roster. But I'm okay. I'm not planning on spending a whole lot on my bench because these are that shallow benches. You can start 3 wide receivers in a flex. I'm going to make sure I got 5 of them. That's how I'm attacking this kind of a draft. All right. Anything else in the chat? Okay. Feel free to ask any more questions. Be happy to answer. The last couple of nominations to bring you up to speed. We had Deontay Johnson ended up for 24. Lockett ended up for 21. Evan McPherson ended up for $2. We've had 2 kickers go, and they've both been $2. Folks, if you listen to the show, you know that hurts my soul. That hurts my heart. Don't spend more than $1 for a kicker. Stop it. Stop it. If you want to spend $2 for a kicker, go for it. I think that dollar is way too valuable. We're on Drake London right now. He's at $16. The thing is with kickers, and what I always say about kickers and defenses, you have to remember every year we go into the draft and we think we know who's going to be number 1 at those positions. It never happens. If you drafted Justin Tucker 2 years ago, he was the number 1 kicker, and everybody went and paid a couple bucks or $2 or $3 or $4 for him to get the number 1 guy. He finished 8th. Okay, so you wasted money on the 8th best kicker. You can find the 3rd best kicker on the wire. Eddie Pinheiro was a top 5 kicker last year, folks. Eddie freaking Pinheiro. He was on the wire. Nobody drafted him. Why are you spending $2? That's all I'm going to say. I'm gonna leave you people alone now. Love y'all, and that is absolutely a choice you can make. So, all right, Drake London, $22. All right, we are rolling now. Caps are getting low. We still have a guy with over $100, 2 guys with over $100. They're picking off their targets. We are at Kenneth Walker now. He's $9. I'm gonna get in on Kenneth Walker. I don't really want to go more than 14, $16 for him. I mean, I'll get in there now for the low teens, but he's just not a player that I really want to put all my eggs in that basket just because of Charbonnet being there. I like Ken Walker, don't get me wrong. The reason I've been in on Ken Walker though is the price has been in the mid to low teens. This price is up to $19. Again, that's okay. That's totally fine. But that doesn't work for my build right now, so I'm out. All right, we have Dameon Pierce up for bid. So clearly we're going to hit the last tier of running backs that people really care about now, and that's really Dameon Pierce. There is a tier break after Dameon Pierce. So I'd expect this price to get up into the mid-20s because of the tier break. I'm going to save you all the noises that are emanating from my back because, oh, my back is messed up. Trying to sit in a folding chair for a 2-hour stream. I got a bad back, folks. Scott dropped into the chat to say, brah, $2 is cheap, brah. I like paying $2 for a player, brah. Dameon Pierce for 23. Yeah, that's where I figured we were headed on Pierce. Now Madison's up for bid. Alexander wants to know my thoughts on Miles Sanders. I'm not a Miles Sanders guy. He's already banged up. One of the things I heard about Miles Sanders at the beginning of his career was by Greg Cosell. And if you guys know him, he's the film grinder for NFL. And one of the things that he said about Miles Sanders at the beginning of his career was that he is an instinct player. And that's okay. But he says basically what he does is he runs away from colors. And what that means is a very simple way of saying he runs away from jerseys. So he doesn't necessarily think that he was that gifted of a runner from a standpoint of technical ability. It's just that he would see the other color of the other jersey and he would move away from it. And he was twitchy enough and good enough and fast enough that that was a decent strategy for him. But it didn't make him a very technically sound NFL running back. And so I'm pretty much out on Sanders, especially because he's already banged up. I just don't love getting a guy who's already got a groin strain from a guy who's got a history of that kind of thing. So Sanders is going to be on my do not draft list, and he's going to be a guy that I'm going to try to nominate in the middle rounds when I don't want to be nominating a player that I want. So Deebo Samuel's stopped at $17. Now that's a good deal. I mean, I was about to say I'm not going to let that happen. I want one more receiver, and I'm not going to let it go for 17. So I'm glad some people jumped in. Now he's up around 22, and I feel just fine letting him go. So like I said, still trolling for another running back and another wide receiver. I think that's going to happen here soon. But prices are a little more sustained than I thought they would be. We do have some people finally spending some money here, but we are going to run the clock a little bit quicker here in a few minutes. So we're going to go another round or two, and then we're going to wind the clock. All right. So I'm going to get a guy out there that's a very polarizing player, and that's Christian Watson. I love his upside, but I don't love the upside of his price generally in most auctions. But I have been able to sneak him through for a reasonable price at times. So I'm going to see if that happens here. And if it does, he's going to be a dynamite number 5 for me. Otherwise, I'm just going to let him roll and I'll be out. So it looks like that's going to happen. Two guys are in a bidding war for Christian Watson. Deebo Samuel went for 23. As I talked about my value watch earlier in the summer on Patreon, I really want Deebo Samuel to be in the mid-teens. I want him to be 15 to 18, and then I'm cool right there. But when he gets into 23, we're really talking about needing to see a better Deebo Samuel this year. And I think that we will, but betting on it at this point doesn't work for my roster. And I just don't know that we have to do that with the number of wide receivers that we have left in this general area of the draft. It is starting to get a little bit thin. We're on DeAndre Hopkins now. I like DeAndre Hopkins if he stays in the teens. But again, I've seen him going for a little bit too much for my stomach. I still think that, Ryan Tannehill can get the ball out. So I think that DeAndre Hopkins is a fine player still. I don't think, it's over for Hopkins. So Danny is in the chat and he says, "What are your thoughts on the Chiefs backfield? If you can get all three of them for $10 to $15, is it worth using three roster spots?" No, Danny, I'm not sure that I would. You can get them cheap, and that is something you can do. But I think I'd probably bet on two of them if I'm going to do that. If that's really a strategy, I don't want all three of them. And let's be honest here. One of the things that I have noticed in the past is there are some guys that do some studies on running back value in the room. And one of the things I've noticed is that you really have a phenomenon based on coaching that comes around. And what it comes down to is they're just backfields that don't produce a lot of points regardless of who the player is. So that's the Chiefs backfield. They just don't produce a ton of points. So it's not something that I want to go for that strategy on. Now, the New Orleans Saints, in the years that Sean Payton was there, they were always near the top at producing running back points no matter who was there. And I'll tell you what, I'm going to be investing in the Denver running backs this year and going forward as long as Sean Payton is there because his running back room will produce fantasy points. So it's just a matter of not loving the Chiefs situation. So I do have some Pacheco though. In deeper leagues, I think Pacheco is a nice target because he's just going to be a guy that touches the ball a lot. And in deeper leagues, it's really just about getting a guy out there with a pulse sometimes. So Pacheco's a guy I like there. And I like Clyde Edwards-Helaire for $1 in deep leagues at the back of your draft. I'm not a McKinnon guy. He exploded with a ton of touchdowns. Those touchdowns were pretty darn fluky. He was a horrendous fantasy running back over the first 8 to 10 weeks of the season. All of a sudden, he just started dropping TDs, and that's just not going to happen very often. So, and y'all know my thoughts on Amari Cooper. I'm not going to let this happen. So, Amari Cooper, I'm going to get him up to a certain price, and then I'm going to let him go. I'm going to be fine getting rid of him, but I'm certainly not going to let him go too cheaply. And the guy that I'm bidding with has a ton of money. So I just got to get him up there to a reasonable price, use some of his cap. I'm going to go 27. I'm probably not going to go a whole lot higher than that. So he might let me have him for 27. If he's apparently not listening because he probably could have had him for 20. There we go. He's got him for 29, 28. Do I bid 29? I mean, there's not a lot left, but I don't really care that much. I got too much Amari Cooper. I realize this is a mock, but I'm trying to act like I would in a normal draft. So I let Amari Cooper go. Let me update you on the last couple guys because I've been running my FWM. Alexander Madison went for 20, Debo for 23, Christian Watson 19, DeAndre Hopkins 19, Joe Burrow 16, Amari Cooper 28. I think the Cooper price is a little inflated by there being a tier break after Cooper. So, pay attention to that stuff. It's probably something I should have thought about more. And oh my God, folks, Brian Drake has entered the chat. Everyone say hi to my buddy Brian Drake. Signed in under the Fantasy Football Hustle. And Alexander wants a break. Alexander, no breaks. Just kidding. Yes, actually, let's do that because I want to lower the timer to 10 seconds so that we're not here all night. And that's going to make this thing move a lot faster. So let's be cognizant of that. Where are we at? 66. Let's do it at the end of this round. We're going to be at the end of round 6, and the money's getting tighter. So let's take a quick 2-minute break. I'm just kidding. You can have 5. Take a 5-minute break, and then when you come back, the nomination clock's going to be at 10 seconds. The bid clock's going to be at 10 seconds. Things are going to move quick. Have your nominations ready, and we're going to fly through the final 60% of this draft. So we have some people with money, but we got most of the room is under, $50. Here's the caps right now: 23, 72, that's me, 94, 55, 87, 16, 17, 19, 31, 13, 74, 33. So there's a little bit of a weird thing developing the haves and the have-nots because we've got one, two, three, four, five, six. We've got 7 of the 12 teams are under $35, but then we've also got one, two, three, four, 5 teams that are over 70 bucks. So this is an interesting development. All right. So where are we now? We're on the Dallas Cowboys defense. We just had in succession Saints D, Tyler Bass, Niners D, all go for a buck. The Cowboys D came up for $1 and somebody bid 2. So somebody's taking the Cowboys D for 2. Now we're 3 picks from a quick, it's going to be a short break, folks. So don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk through the break. I'm not taking a break. I'm going to recap what's going on and recap what my strategy is going to be through the second part of this draft, through the final 60 or 65% of this draft. Things are going to move quick. We're probably going to be done by about 10 o'clock, which is when the live stream will end. And even if we're not done at that point, we'll finish it out. Let me put the draft board in the room again. Here's the link to the draft board. And there we are. If you want to see what's going on in the draft board, who's up for bid? I don't even know. Miles Sanders. Oh my God. I got a bid for Miles Sanders. I'm just kidding. I'm not making fun of Miles Sanders. But I'm also not going to let him go for $10. I mean, I don't like Miles Sanders, but he ain't going for 10 bucks. All right, 12. He ain't going for 12 either. 13's fine. I don't even want to bid 14. It defeats me. Okay, thank you. Somebody bid 14. I did not want to have to do that. Brian, what are you drinking tonight, brother? I know you got an IPA over there that sounds really yummy and it's gonna suck. Just kidding, buddy. You got good taste in alcohol. I just don't doesn't happen to be my taste. All right, Miles Sanders went for 14. Now we're bidding on Pat Fryermuth. He's one of the guys that I've really been targeting in my auctions only because he's been cheap. But he jumped up to $9 pretty quick here, so I'm out on that. I'm going to try to grab, like I said, another good wide receiver. I got my eye on a couple. Still need a running back. Still kind of hanging out there. Need a running back. All right, so we're about to sell Fryermuth for 9. Now we're going to take a break after this one. Don't go anywhere. I'm going to talk through the break. I'm going to let the other people have a quick break here, and we're going to come back with shorter nominations, and it is going to fly. So DeAndre Swift is on the block for the last pick of the round. I've got him at $2 right now. I'm going to bid on DeAndre Swift. I'm not a DeAndre Swift guy, but I'm certainly going to bid on that upside for a few bucks and get him up into the teens before I even think about letting him go. I don't want to be all in on DeAndre Swift. That is for sure. But at $10, $11, I'm going to go 12. I might go a couple more, but that's really about it. I'd really like to have him for 12, and I don't even know if I really want to go to 14. Yeah, I'm not going to 14, so 12 is my limit. All right, great. That's perfect. I love when I say that's my limit, and that's what I get him for. That's exciting to me. Happy about that. Okay, we're pausing the draft. Please don't nominate somebody. All right, draft is paused. We're going to be back here at 9:26 sharp. 9:26 sharp. But don't go anywhere. I'm staying right here. We're going to talk about the recap so far of what's happened and what's about to happen because I want to talk to you a little bit about my strategy going forward here. Now that I landed DeAndre Swift for $12, what do I do? Is he my RB2? Can I count on him? Let's talk about that for a minute here. All right, so be back at 9:26 p.m. And let everyone know clock will be going down to 10 seconds. This is a mock after all. We're trying to get some use out of it, but we also want to make sure that we're not here until midnight tonight. So we're going to lower the draft clock. And you know what, folks? I hate to say it, but when you're in an online auction, you are going to have things that shift. You're going to find an inflection point. Somebody finds it for you with something like this, okay? And that's what happens in online, you know, draft rooms because a lot of times people aren't prepared with their nominations, and then they're going to end up picking the top player on the list. That could hurt you. That could ruin a plan that you have. But also, when it goes down to 10 seconds, things move fast. People get flustered. They make mistakes. Make sure you're not one of them. Make sure that you're ready with your nominations and you're ready with your strategy so you know exactly what's about to happen. You want to be ready to, move in there and scoop up the players that you want. Um, so a couple questions, and then I'm going to talk to you about my strategy going forward. We got about 3 minutes left on break. I'm not going anywhere, so please don't leave. Let's see. Drake is drinking from Three Heads Brewing. I'm not even going to comment. Alexander says IPAs aren't cool. Yeah, rock on, Alexander. I agree, bro. Thoughts on my preferences between James Conner and Cam Akers? Well, I got to be honest. I thought that I would end up with a lot of Conner this summer. If you saw my post on Patreon, you know that I have almost no Conner because he ends up going for 12, 14 bucks, and I just don't love it. I'm just not in on that price. I thought the reason I was going to have him is he'd be 9, 10, 11 bucks. He's going 12, 14. I have a problem with the entire situation. It's a bad line. It's a bad quarterback. It's a bad offense. We don't even know how good the coach is. The coach could be a disaster as well. This has the makings of a horrendous offensive season for the Arizona Cardinals. I don't want to be in on James Conner. Now, somebody commented on my post the other day and said, oh, there's an inverse relationship between Conner and fantasy points and how well the offense does. And I understand what you mean. Like, I get that Conner, they lean on him more when they don't have anything else. But number one, that's resulted in him breaking down at times when he has too many touches. Same thing with Leonard Fournette. But the point is on Conner, like, there's a lot of things that have to go right. And I'm willing to invest in that for my wide receiver 4, or excuse me, RB4, or at a cheaper price. But when he gets 14, 15, 16 bucks, like, the risk is no longer baked into that number. So I'm absolutely wanting Cam Akers over James Conner, especially with an even price. I take Akers over Conner straight up. But I think the price, for Akers, it might be a little bit higher, but people don't like Cam Akers either. So, it came out recently that Kyron Williams is going to play a lot and he's going to play on passing downs. That makes me a little less bullish on Akers, but I still think that at this point you have to, you know, yeah, somebody's asking me if the draft is paused. Yes, it is. Um, so yeah, so I think that Akers, I kind of feel the same way about him that I do about Connor in some respect. I don't think the Rams offense is going to be nearly as bad. And I think that, last year was an outlier for Sean McVay because he lost his quarterback. But, last summer, don't forget that Matthew Stafford was like on a day on, day off kind of thing. They were managing his reps all summer. He hasn't had that this summer. He feels much better. He's a different player right now. I really think it was an outlier for McVay's offense to be so bad last year. So I think Cam Akers is going to get plenty of carries. He's going to get 300 touches, even if he's not the guy who's catching all the passes. I understand that matters in PPR. I get it. But if he's a little bit cheaper or even the same price as Connor, I'm totally fine with him as a perfect RB3 or flex guy. I don't really want to count on him as my RB2. But again, in a situation where you've spent a lot of money, he's a fine RB2 in an auction draft with a different build. I'm not saying that's what I want to do, but honestly, a lot of times that is what I do. And you let the draft speak to you, and that's kind of what's happened here. I love DeAndre Swift that I got for 12 bucks, but I don't want to rely on him as a 2. So I got to get somebody else. But look, I still got $60. I want to get a receiver and another running back. And I got plenty of money because I'm not going to spend anything at quarterback and tight end. And then the back of my roster is going to be really easy to piece together near the end. Just need to let it come back to me. I can't force anything. And I think that that's what's going to happen. So I'm going to try to completely bail out of quarterback and tight end and be super cheap at those spots and then spend money on a couple other guys. I noticed somebody said the hammer's coming. I love it. Who said that? El Tio Vegas. I don't know who that is, but the hammer is coming. He's feeling pretty good about his team. And he's got 33 bucks. He's going to drop it all. You going to drop it all, buddy? Oh, he already dropped the hammer is what he's saying. All right. My kids are so loud. Can you hear my kids? Ridiculous. All right. Gina says she came for Amon Ra. I could leave with only him and be happy. All right. Can you give me Saquon Barkley? Because that's who I wanted. Gina, 45. I wanted him at 44. You kept going. All right, we're right. We're back. Let's go. Here we go. I'm changing the draft settings now. We're going 10 seconds. It's going to force an inflection point shift here, folks. It will. Just watch what happens here. There's going to be some changes in how things go here, and it's going to move quick. We are ready to go. Draft has resumed. We're getting back in it with the New York Jets defense. That's not funny. He was only 45. All right, it's my turn to nominate, and I'm going to punt because I was running my FWM. Come on, I did it. David Cross. Why did no, I clicked it with like 4 seconds left and it didn't work. Okay, he came up. All right, so I'm gonna get my kicker here just as a punt to the nomination and land a guy. All right, so this is what we're doing now. We go Jets. We went Carlson, and now we're going Butker. So people are locking up their guys. Okay. And keep in mind there's an inflection point that often happens after breaks. And when you go on an extended break, like my home league will have a dinner break where we order pizza and we'll stop for like an hour. And when you come back, people are full of pizza. Maybe they've had a couple beers. The adrenaline of the first part of the draft is worn off. And at that point, you're going to sometimes see some deals coming back from an extended break like that. Now, we didn't have a big long break, but obviously things have shifted a little bit because now we've got some lower ranked players and right now we're looking at Isaiah Pacheco for $10, and now he's at 11. So Pacheco is gonna looks like go for 11 bucks. So now can you feel it, folks? Can you feel it? The money is going is getting very scarce. Here's our cap numbers now. 22, 59, 93, 30, 87, 16, 17, 18, 31, 13, 63, and 33. So if you notice, there's only a few players over 50 bucks. It's going to get interesting here because those players are going to be competing for the last great guys on the board. And that's something that you have to think about. Now, Alvin Kamara comes up and he goes for just $7. That seems odd, but I didn't bid. I don't want him. I know that he's got potential, but I ain't in. Sam Laporta's up now. Have you noticed the shift, folks? It absolutely happened at the end of the round with the DeAndre Swift nomination. And now we're talking about lower tier players, Alvin Kamara, Isaiah Pacheco. Now we're bidding on Sam Laporta. He went for $3. Okay. So now it's get your guy time. What does get your guy time mean? Well, get your guy time is when everybody has their targets that they're still looking to lock down. And those players end up sort of putting a freeze on their brains and they think to themselves, I want these players. So I'm not going to bid $7 on Nico Collins because I'm really waiting on, Jamal Williams. I mean, terrible, terrible examples there. But you get my point. When people are waiting on their guys, there's going to be some weird deals happening because they're just not willing to bid on who spend 7 of their final $18 on somebody if they get stuck with somebody. So now we've got Cam Akers. He's the top available running back left. There's probably going to be some inflation here because he's the top available guy left. I'm going to go ahead and take him for 11 if I can, but I don't really want to spend more. Um, Binky says he's having trouble. Oh, beautiful. I got Akers. I'm going to pause it here real quick and message him because says he's having trouble. We don't want an auto drafter. That's going to ruin things. All right, yeah. So we got to get him back in here because he's got a lot of money, and we don't want things to be screwed up because we're ruining the results if we allow that to happen. I end up with Cam Akers for 11 bucks. So that I didn't expect that to happen. I love that price for Cam Akers. So now I've got Akers and Swift, and now I'm good at my RB2. I didn't draft one RB2. I drafted two guys that are going to serve as my RB2. So I wanted to spend about 23. Oh, that was an accident. I didn't do that on purpose. but I got the ETN for 27. I said I want to spend about 23 to make it 50 for my RB2, and I ended up getting a 12 and and an $11 that added up to 23. That's perfect. I'm going to pick one of those guys, and I'm going to, I'm going to piece together my RB2 with one of those two guys. All right. So, my screen just reloaded. Okay. And we are back. Everyone ready to go. We are back because I don't want an auto drafter. He's back in and we are resuming. Okay. Sorry about that, everybody, but we don't want an auto drafter. It's going to ruin the results, and he's got a lot of money. So he's back and we're ready to rock. All right, so we just had the Buffalo Bills defense go for $1. So everybody's trying to lock down their kicker and their D. That's a viable strategy. Totally get that. The Miami Dolphins D is up for $1. I just don't want to see you paying more than $1. So if you have somebody that you like and that you want to get out there, that's fine. But I say this all the time. You're really going to want to have those nominations later if you can. Now, sometimes you want to punt. Sometimes you don't have any money and you want to punt. But if you can, save them, okay? Because you're gonna like having that later when you don't want to call out that guy you really want because there's too much money in the room. You're gonna love having that nomination there. So Chris Godwin now, we're talking about, I believe, the top available wide receiver left. Chris Godwin's up to 17 bucks. I'm fine going 18 on him. And that'll be my last wide receiver. Nope, Scott's going to take him for 19, probably. There isn't a lot of money left in the room, so I think Scott's going to end up with him for 19. It's going to bring Scott back to the pack a little bit, but he's still got 71 in a commanding spot there. There's somebody else with 87, but everyone else is pretty much getting down there. So we're on the Ravens defense for $1. And I still believe that I need a wide receiver. There's some guys that I like and that I'm going to go after here, but it's probably going to be putting 10 to 12 to $15 on two different wide receivers to round out my roster. And then really at that point, I don't care who I get after that. I'm pretty set after that. So I'm going to go ahead and nominate the elephant in the room, the guy with the hammy. How much are we willing to pay for a guy that's hurt? Now we do have an auto drafter. LTO is auto drafting. I don't love that. So Jerry Judy's at 10 bucks. And he went for 10 bucks. So that's something to keep in mind. If you feel like Judy's going to be a guy that you're going to target, he's going to be fairly cheap. All right. So Brian has given us his breakdown. Let's hear it, Brian. Running backs are pricey, good value on the tight ends. Yeah, I totally agree. Totally agree. Now we're on Dalvin Cook. Jerry Judy went for 10 bucks. If you feel like that appeals to you, then you're going to be able to get him for a steal. And hopefully he's going to come back and play by midseason and be his own self. Maybe he could be a hammer for you down the stretch. You really want to build him in, though, so that you don't have to rely on him. He's got to be your wide receiver 5 or 6 in order for you to do that. And I think it's possible. I think it's possible. All right, now we're on Justin Herbert. And there's going to be some money paid for Mr. Justin Herbert. I'm going to bid, but I ain't going to get him. I want to see my name show up in orange in the bid box so that everyone knows that I'm still hanging around. I got him for 12 right now. I ain't going to get him for 12. I got him for 14. I ain't going to get him for 14 unless y'all want to let me have him. You guys want to let me have him for 14? Oh, baby. Oh, broken dreams. Alexander, did you do that on purpose? Because you were big. You're one of my biggest supporters, but that was pretty brutal, man. That was pretty brutal. Uh, so Herbert ends up going for 15. I thought I had him at 14, but that's okay because I'm keeping my flexibility here. There's still a lot of quarterbacks left. Now we're talking about Justin Fields. So everybody woke up and said, "Hey, I need a quarterback." So here we go. We're at $9. Boy, Fields is hanging out at 11. I'm going to bid 12 just so y'all know I'm still here. You want to let me have him for 12, Scott? No? How about 14? You let me have him for 14? Hey, Alexander, there's no my bad on this in this game. Hey, Justin Fields for 14 bucks. I absolutely am surprised, but I love it. Of course, I'm gonna have some regret later when I see, you know, Dak Prescott go for 2 and Deshaun Watson go for 4. But I love that price on Justin Fields. I'm seeing prices in the low 20s just about everywhere I go on Justin Fields. So the fact that I got him for 14, I'm very happy about that. That's just a product of not a lot of money being in the room. And one of the guys who has a lot of money, Scott, he didn't really want to spend that. So, um, Alexander, never say my bad in an auction room. Say screw you, pal. Just kidding. Just kidding. All right, Ron, David Montgomery. I'm not going to let him go for $9. So I'm going to bid 10 here. I still think 11's too cheap, but all right. So now we're up at 13 bucks. But when it's sitting there at $9, I'm just not going to let that happen. That's one of those things where I don't need another running back right now for 10 bucks, but I'm not going to let him go for 9. So that's just one of those things where I'm going to throw a bid out there. And if I get him for 10, okay, I'm going to adjust. I'll have to deal with it some other way, but I ain't letting that happen. And that's really what the market value price is that I talk about all the time on my page. I give you my auction values on my Patreon network. And what I've always said is, um, you don't want to let your opponent get some insane deal, okay? Because when you let that happen, you let the draft just really come to them, and that puts them in a spot that's just way too good for them, and that hurts you by extension. And so it's just like I say all the time, like if Patrick Mahomes comes up and it stalls out at 18 bucks, but you had only planned on spending 6 for a quarterback, you have to bid 19. You can't let it happen. And if that happens, then you're handing someone a top 3 quarterback for less than 20 bucks. You can't let that happen. And so it's just one of those things where if you didn't plan on it, oh well, you just got to suck it up and bid, okay? So we are on Michael Pittman. No, we are not. We finished Michael Pittman for $9. David Montgomery went for 13. Mike Evans is at 11 right now. And again, we're seeing a cratering on the price on Mike Evans everywhere you go. I think it's a little bit silly. If I had a little bit more money, I would absolutely be bidding $12 on Mike Evans. I don't think he's a league winner or anything, but I just think it's a little bit silly that he's going for 11 bucks. So all right. We are about 20 minutes from ending this stream, but we're cruising now into the ninth round. So, really, all you're going to miss by the time we get done with the stream is a bunch of $2 and $3 and $4 players as we finish out the draft. It looks like James Conner ended up going for $9 to Gina. She finishes out her running backs. Now that Connor price is something that I maybe I'd be okay with. I've been talking about him sneaking up price wise way too high, and that $9 price is great. That's exactly where you want to take James Conner. That's where the risk is actually baked into the price. And whereas before, 14, $16, that's not baking in the risk. And I just don't that's not what I wanna see happen. Um, yeah, so Connor going for 9, if you bid 10 and somebody says 11, okay, maybe you consider getting out, but I think nine's probably, a little too cheap, but it's perfect. Getting him for $9 is exactly where you want him to be. So and I don't mean like that's his value. I think his value is a little bit higher. You want him right there because that builds in some more risk and builds in value to the price. Gina, she did. She spent all her money. Now she's got $1 per player. But hey, that's a good pickup for $9 when you need a second running back. That's a great pickup. All right, so Javonte Williams is on the block now. All right, so what am I going to do? I'm going to attack the rest of the draft with really, I want one more wide receiver that I like, and then it's just going to be pure value from there on out because I love the Justin Fields pickup. So now I can just spend whatever I want on a reasonable tight end and one more wide receiver with I've got $34 left. My max is 28. I think if I nail a tight end fairly cheap, it is going to be hammer time, and I'm going to take the best possible player left on the board. All right, so for a defense, I'm going to take the Washington defense. And the Washington defense is just purely because they play the fighting Clayton Tunes week 1. So I'll take my defense. So now I only need 6 players. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is exactly where I wanna be, all right? I've spent most of my money, and I've only got 6 players left. I only need 1 starter, that's a tight end, and then I'm gonna drop the hammer on the best available player I see left on the board, and if I don't have to spend all my money, even better, okay? So, Trevor Lawrence is now up for bid, and he's at $2. $3. Now there's only 4 people that need a quarterback left. Most of them don't have money. Scott's got money. He's bidding, but the other guys don't. So I would expect Lawrence to peter out in the low teens, 12, $13. And right now he's at 11. So we might end up seeing it stop there. Yep, it's going to stop at 11. That's a great discussion question. Discuss amongst yourselves. Trevor Lawrence for 11, Justin Fields for 14. I can see the virtues of both prices, because I think I love Fields' upside, obviously, but Lawrence at $11, he's got sneaky rushing upside and 35 plus touchdown upside throwing the ball. So, yeah, I love the price on Lawrence. Absolutely, Brian. I agree with you. And if I didn't have Fields already, you know, um, I would have been bid, I would absolutely would have made Scott pay 13 for Lawrence before I let him go. All right, so George Pickens ends up going for 9. And now what I really need to figure out is, am I punting my nominations? Meaning, am I going to let let a few rounds go by, calling out players I don't really want, or am I going to step in and nominate the top ranked guy on the board and then just try to lock him up now and see what I have to pay? So that's a consideration at this point for me, because I love the spot I'm in. I've got $33 and I only need 6 guys. I don't really care about 2 or 3 of those guys. So I really need 3 guys. So I think the strategy at this point for me is, what am I going to pay for my tight end? Okay. I really believe that that's what it comes down to. Because if I end up having to pay 6 or 7, then that's gonna matter. Now we're bidding on James Cook. He is the top available guy left on the board. Now, do I want to drop the hammer on James Cook? The answer is no, I don't. Oh, I should. I really should. And maybe if this was a season long thing, I don't know, maybe I might. I don't know. But I just cannot get behind James Cook at this point. So I'm going to let him go for $13. That's going to take somebody out. And now here are the caps: $8, 33, 37, 15, 87, 8, 7, 9, 10, 8, 22, 32. So somebody's got $87. Everyone else is below 35. And at this point, $87 is great because you're going to run over everybody. But I don't know that there's $87 worth of value left in the room right now. So that's the consideration that you have to have. When you save all that money, is there enough value left to make it worth having saved the money? I'd say at this point, we're too far for that value to be there. Apparently, it's my first day drinking. Spilled it on the floor. That's not an IPA either. Um, okay. Yeah, I don't know. He was having trouble answering somebody in the chat saying nope, he might be on auto draft. The thing is, he was having trouble and he logged out and logged back in. I thought he was all right, but I don't know what's going on. But I can't afford to wait anymore. It's quarter of 10, and we just need to keep it moving. So he's not bidding though, and it doesn't say he's on auto. Because if he was on auto, these players, the computer would be bidding on some of these players. So I'm not sure what's going on there. All right, so to recap the last couple of players, I was asleep on David and Joku, went for $1. That's kind of stupid. I was talking and checking stuff. So Brandon Cooks is up now. I would have bid on Njoku. Gabe Davis, we went for 9. We had a kicker go for $2 for some reason, and Sanders kicker $1. Cook went for $13. So right now, Brandon Cooks is at $7. There's still a couple of high upside guys that I have my eye on at wide receiver. So we're just going to keep a couple of those in our back pocket here for the end of the draft, but a couple guys I still like. But I think my nomination has to be a tight end at this point because I just want to see how much I'm going to spend. And then I'm freed up to do whatever I want the rest of the draft. So that's really an easy decision for me because I don't want to have that tight end rent space in the back of my mind. Like, okay, I got to save this amount for a tight end. I don't want to do that. I want to know exactly what I can blow on two more players. So I'm going to nominate a tight end that I like and I hope to get. But I don't want to spend more than 5, 6, 7 bucks. So I'm going to try to get somebody for a reasonable price. But if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. I'm just going to completely bail and spend 2 or 3 bucks. All right. So I nominated Evan Ingram. I'm going to take it up 4 or 5 bucks, but I'm not going to go a whole lot higher than that. I'm at 6. I know Scott's got Trevor Lawrence. He may want to go 7. That's fine. I ain't going 8. If you want him for 7, take him, Scott. Okay. All right. So I got Evan Ingram for 6 bucks, and that's exactly where I want to be. $6 is about that's the number I pick almost every time that I get into the situation where I want to blow off tight end because I feel like you can get a Fryermuth and Joku, Ingram, somebody like that for right around $6. All right, I'm not letting you have Antonio Gibson for $5, Scott. You can have him for 7. How about that? Um, so Gibson went for 7. I'd go back and spend 8 for him if I could give one of these running backs back, but that's not an option. So I've got my guys and I'm cool with it. Kadarius Toney is now up. Gibson went for 7. Ingram went for 6. Jackson Smith and Jigba went for 9. And Brandon Cooks went for 7. So these are the prices we're going to see from here on out. The guy with all the money is nominating. I'm not sure he's fixed his problems yet. But we have to press on. Marquise Brown is up now. I don't really want to be in on Brown. So what I have to determine is what are my upside plays here from here on out? I've got 3 running backs I like. Are there some upside plays at running back that I'm really interested in? And what are those guys? Because I only have 5 roster spots left. So I really want to pick and choose how I'm going to divide up this $27 that I've got. On 5 roster spots, I don't want to spend $5 per spot. I want to spend by 27, I want to spend 10 and 12 and then run out $1 on the rest of them. So, I want to really get 2 good players here. I don't really want to get a bunch of $5, average players if I can help it. So we're looking at wide receiver in that regard, and then we're going to try to fill the back of the roster with running backs. So we got about 10 minutes left on the live stream. I think that that's going to give you a great idea of how to attack an auction in general because you've heard me talk my way through the entire thing. And you've heard me shift as I went through the draft because I didn't expect to spend $14 on a quarterback. But when it came to getting an impact player like Justin Fields, I'm ecstatic to pay $14 for a quarterback. And I didn't expect to spend so cheaply at running back, but the running backs were too pricey. So I adjusted and spent some more money at receiver and, spent a few bucks on Fields and got deeper at receiver. So, it's one of those things where I go in with a plan every single time. In a typical draft like this, I'm going to have almost the same exact plan every time, too. But in general, what it comes down to is I'm never going to know that until I see things developing. So, yeah, Brian's pointing out an excellent point. There's a ton of running back spots available still, and there's a lot of good running backs out there. So, Michael Thomas is an impact player. Again, I don't want to get out over my skis on a guy like Michael Thomas, but I'm certainly not going to let him go for $6 or $7. So, I end up getting him for 8. That's totally fine. He's one of the impact players I see that's left. So, I'm happy to do that. $8 for Michael Thomas. So now I had 27, and now I've really got 16 bucks I can throw at one more player. So I need to figure out who that player is going to be. And there probably isn't a $16 player left. So I need to figure out in my head, what is it that I'm going to do with this money? And I think that I want to go for, like I said, one more impact wide receiver, but there's several guys out there, and I'm hoping that I can get 2 more, and that would be an ideal world. So, let's see what we've got here. We are on Aaron Rodgers. Deshaun Watson just went for 3. Aaron Rodgers just went for 2. And we're at that phase of the draft where there's a lot of people when their max bid is less than $10. So let's see what we're going to do here. Khalil Herbert is up for 2, and now he's at 3. So I'm going to pass on Herbert, even though I like him and I think this price is good. I'm going to pass on Herbert because I'm not that concerned about Herbert as my RB4. I've got 3 running backs I like. As an RB4, it's not going to impact my squad that much unless I get a guy I'm really interested in. So it's one nomination until my turn. I'm just going to go ahead and try to nominate somebody that I really think I can spend some money on. In just a second here, we got Chig Okonkwo is up for bid. He's at $2. Herbert went for 12. That's a little bit higher number than I think that we're typically going to see, but I think that's a scarcity issue. Now I'm nominating Jordan Addison. We'll see if I can't get him for a reasonable price. Well, that escalated quickly. So he went up to 9. Somebody went up to 9 for their max bid, which I totally get, but I went to 10 because I love Jordan Addison as my wide receiver 5. All right. So now I've got one, two, three. Oh, I'm sorry. He's my wide receiver 6. Excuse me. I forgot that I already landed Michael Thomas. So I love the build out at wide receiver because even though I got shut out of a $35 wide receiver, I ended up kind of just sprinkling that down the rest of the roster. And I love that I'm 6 deep at wide receiver. That's how I like to build. You don't have to agree with that, but I like going 6 deep at wide receiver. So I've got Lamb, Metcalf, Mike Williams as my top 3. Then I got Christian Kirk in my flex, and I've still got Michael Thomas and Jordan Addison on the bench. I love it, and I'm going to try to grab one more. So Alexander said, I've heard Michael Thomas looks terrible in camp. I'm not hearing that he looks amazing, but I'm hearing that he's healthy. And he may have lost some. He's had some injuries, but this guy was on a Hall of Fame track. He's a Hall of Fame type of player. I'm not saying he's going to the Hall of Fame. He was on that track. And I saw a tweet. Somebody said that earlier today. I forget who it was that pointed out that he's one of those guys that just has that X factor upside. And I don't think we can afford to ignore that late in drafts. I'm not chasing Michael Thomas early, and I'm certainly not chasing him for $12. But if you get late in a draft, and I paid 8, I think that's an overpay, frankly. But if you pay 8 and he's one of the impact players left, I think that's totally fine because it comes down to, do I really want, Juju Smith-Schuster or do I want Michael Thomas? Now, I think Smith-Schuster is going to be an okay player, but I don't think he's got near the upside that Michael Thomas does. So that's what I'm looking at. That's how I think about it. And I don't think that that's, what do I think in general about Michael Thomas's chances of hitting? Well, they're not super high. I don't care though. That's not the point. The probability is there for you to take a shot when the shot can be taken, if that makes any sense. All right. So then after Addison went for 10, Treylon Burks went for 10, the Patriots D for a buck, Quentin Johnston for 10. So now we've got Sky Moore on the board. So it looks like our buddy Binky is back in the draft. Says he got shut out for a couple rounds. I'm so sorry about that. It was registering that he was still there. So he ended up not getting autoed some players when he probably should have, and he didn't get to spend his money. So he gets Sky Moore for $8 and Quentin Johnston for 10. So he's scooping up the deals. But it wasn't his fault. But he scooped up Treylon Burks, Quentin Johnston, and Sky Moore. That's pretty nice, right? So I'm going to put my max bid on Cortland Sutton, and I'm not going to get him. Nope, I didn't. But that's okay. I'm going to max him out every time just to make the other people pay their max. And that's where we are in the draft. I knew when I went and got Jordan Addison that I wasn't going to get Cortland Sutton, and that's okay. I knew that going in. But um, I want to go 7 on any player that's worth 7 right out of the gate, just so that we can make sure and get that number up there for people to spend their money. I've already got 6 wide receivers. I didn't need to save for a 7th. I like to, but I didn't need to. So now I've got a max of $7. I still need to pick up a running back. I need a running back 4, and then I don't care after that. So I can't afford the luxury of spending a bunch on another wide receiver. Well, there's no bunch anymore. I got $7. But my max is 7, and it's really tempting for me to roll out my max on somebody and try to get him, but I just need to get a running back. Brian Robinson's up for bid, and he's one of them. So I'll bid $2 on him. Sutton went for 12, Juju went for 2, Beckham went for 3. I'm gonna go $4 on Brian Robinson just because he makes a really nice kind of boring RB4 that's gonna see a bunch of touches and possibly have the goal line roll. So I get him for $4. I'm totally happy with that. Now I still got a $4 max bid. I can try to bring that in on an RB5 or a wide receiver 7. And then after that, it's pretty simple. Pay $2 for a couple guys, or a dollar for a couple guys, and I'm out. So we're getting down to the end, folks, and we're getting to the end of the live stream. Thank you all for joining me. We're going to end it here in just a couple of minutes. I'm going to try to finish out my team real quick, maybe stay on the air for that. We had Samaji P. Ryan up at $10 and excuse me, $9, and he goes for 9. So that's the max of most people in the room. Now we're looking at Jamison Williams for a dollar. Odell Beckham went for 3, Robinson 4, P. Ryan 9. That's where we're at. And we got Jamison Williams, who's at $6 right now. And he is going to be sold. So it's going to be my turn to nominate here in just a second. Elijah Moore is up. And I could throw $4 at Elijah Moore as my final player, but I just don't care that much about doing that for my wide receiver 7. I'd like to throw money at an RB5 instead. So I've only got a $4 max bid, but I'm going to try and see if anybody wants to take Zach Charbonnet for 5. And if they do, they've got him, and he is going to go for 5. And that's going to finish one of the players. But that's okay. I bid on him for 4 because I know that's my max, and I only need 2 players. So I'm going to put 4 out there. That's going to eliminate almost the entire field. And now next time around, I'm going to try it again with somebody I like, and we're gonna go from there. So I do have Travis Etienne, so it's possible for me to want to throw money at Tank Bigsby because he's going to be my RB5. I can take that shot at trying to maybe handcuff Etienne, but again, that may not work. So we're just going to see how it goes. Gina says I might fill my roster before midnight. This thing's going to be over in 20 minutes. I know it doesn't feel like it, but it's going to be over very quick. So Romeo Dobbs goes for 4. Rashad Bateman is now on the clock, and Rashad Bateman's up to 5. Excuse me, up to 4. And there's only one player who can bid more than $4 at that point, and that's Binky. So because he was shut out, he is unfortunately, had to come back in and try to assemble his roster after the fact. Nobody can outbid him at this point. Nobody can bid more than $4, and that's probably a good time to end the live stream. I need 2 players. I'll end it after my next nomination to see if I get the player that I want. Otherwise, we're going to be done and end this thing because I've been running my FWM for 2 full hours. I can't even believe it's gone by. I looked down and like 11 minutes into this thing, I'm like, how am I going to do 2 hours? But there's just so much. You can just talk about an auction nonstop. And I hope this has been fun and interesting for all of you. This will be on my YouTube page for you to watch back. Okay. Why can't I get back to the page? All right. So we had Raheem Mostert go for 2, Kirk Cousins for 1, Bateman for 5. Now Jamal Williams is up and he's at $3. And it looks like Williams will go for 3. And now we're on Gina for a nomination. And most of the people here are either done or $3 left. And that's why I said we would go for 2 hours tonight. So at this point, we have Devon Ashane up. He goes for $1 to Gina. I believe this is Gina's husband on the clock. He can spend $1 as well. He's got Cole Kmet out there for $1. And it looks like he is going to get him for $1. right, the next nomination is going to be Marvin Mims for $1, and Mims is gonna go for 2, it looks like, unless Binky wants to jump in. He does not, and Marvin Mims is gonna go for $2. All right, we're at the end of this round here, and that's going to be the nomination of Zay Jones for $1. Is anybody gonna bid? Anybody gonna bid on Zay Jones? $1, $1, $1. Nope. One nomination until my turn. Who is it gonna be? Is everybody in suspense? Is everybody excited? Is everybody excited? Well, there's only one guy that can outbid me. Is he gonna do it to me? Or am I gonna get my guy? Hey, I got Tank Bigsby for $4, and that's gonna put me at $1 for my last player. Absolutely thrilled getting Bigsby there for my RB5. So my running backs, I pieced them together, and I'm happy about that because I get ETN for 27, Swift for 12, Akers for 11, Robinson for 4, and then I get Bigsby to back up ETN in case something catastrophic happens there, or in case Bigsby has standalone value at the goal line. So I'm ecstatic about how I finish out the squad here. Love my 6 wide receivers, love my 5 running backs, and I'm probably going to go in here and try to get a tight end to back up Ingram. I think at this point, it's going to be a backup tight end, or I'm going to look at a wide receiver that I think maybe um, should be on a roster and isn't yet. So that might be a guy like Alan Lazard or Jacoby Myers or something like that. But I think it's probably smart if I'm playing this out as a real league to go for a tight end. So the last couple picks have been Gainwell, Daniel Jones, Dalton Schultz, Jacoby Myers. They're all going for $1. So let's just say I think it's probably time to end it. We are at that time in the draft where we're going to go a couple more rounds of $1 players, and it's going to go really fast. But I think you've learned what you need to learn at this point. Basically, it's a glorified draft at this point. So we are just going back and forth. So I'm going to end the live stream now. And I want to say to everybody, thank you for joining me. This has been what I think an incredibly helpful and interesting look at how an auction draft unfolds and the thoughts in my head. I just spit stuff out there that I was thinking the whole time. And I hope it helped you. I don't know if it did or not, but please like the video, and I'm going to share it on Twitter. And if you would retweet, I would love that as well so people can find the video. It is going to be on my YouTube channel, the Auction Brief YouTube channel. I know I don't do a lot with the channel, but this is a perfect use for it. And that is what I'm going to do. So thank you all for joining me tonight. Let's see. Brian says, why not bid $2 on Bigsby? It was higher than all the other max bids except one. That's a good point. I thought about it and I just decided that I don't really care about that last spot. And you make a good point. But I would rather throw the $4 out there. My last spot is generally a guy that is going to be cut immediately after the season starts. So that's why I did it that way. But you make a good point, Brian, and that's probably something I should have thought about. So my last guy is on the clock. That's Tyler Higbee for $1, and it looks like I'm going to end up with him. I've rounded out the squad. Folks, that's going to do it for tonight. I'm going to stick around in the auction draft room to make sure things go all right. Thank you so much for joining me. I am Drew Davenport, your fantasy football lawyer. This is the Auction Brief YouTube channel. Please don't forget to check me out on Twitter at Drew Davenport FF, on Patreon at patreon.com/fantasy football lawyer, just $3 a month. We're heading into the biggest draft week of the year. Make sure you get over there and check out my stuff. I'm constantly putting stuff on there. I just had an interview with Rich Rebar. I've got Dave Richard lined up for tomorrow from CBS. I've got an injury doctor lined up tomorrow as well. You don't want to miss all this content exclusively on the Patreon channel for just $3 a month. And if you want to see this beautiful t-shirt somewhere, get over to the Auction Brief store on Store Envy and check out my merchandise. Thank you so much for joining me. That's going to do it. That's going to end the stream for tonight. You all have been wonderful. Thank you for being in the draft if you're listening to me. and thank you for being in the chat. It's been a good time. I appreciate all of you and appreciate all of your support. Let's go crush some auctions.